Welcome to the Better Sex Podcast. My name is Deborah Catt, and I am your shameless host. This is the Better Sex Podcast, where we have unfiltered conversations about sex and relationships. These conversations are frank and sometimes explicit, and may not be appropriate for all audiences, so please listen with care. I truly believe that a sexy world creates a happier and a safer world. If you want to do your part to create a safe and sexy world, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us get the word out and create a more shameless world. So today I am so excited. We are going to dive into the world of my guest, Rachel Steele. She is the CEO of Red MILF Productions, where she's had various roles, including actress, producer, writer, director, set designer, costumer, makeup artist. She's done it all. And she's built her career from the ground up. Her entry, I love this part, her entry into the adult industry was through a wet t-shirt picture that she entered into a Hot Wife contest. Well, actually, her husband put it into the Hot Wife contest. So I am really excited to dive in, to learn more about who she is, and to take a different look at the adult industry. So welcome, Rachel. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you got into this. What is Red MILF Productions, and how did you get into this world?
Yes, thank you. It's lovely to be here. I always love to share my story to inspire others and help in any way that I can. Um, just as the story says, as you mentioned, I literally got into this industry quite by accident. It was never an intention of mine. Once I once that image was submitted and I won this little contest, I was very surprised at the little contest check that came along with the winnings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is 2 weeks paycheck for me in one little snap of a picture, which I enjoyed doing. I was having fun doing that and laughing and giggling and being really myself. And so I started, kind of fast forward a little bit. I dove into it. I looked on the website that my partner told me about at the time that he entered the picture into the contest. And then I saw their website and I saw people that were shooting on these websites and thought, wow, I look very similar to these women and these people. And I wonder if this is something that I could do because, getting a paycheck without a formal education or any kind of trade is tricky and difficult. And I was always struggling, supporting my young family at the time. And so the money really appealed to me. And then I dove into the whole webcam, thinking, well, I'll just start with that and webcamming, and found that I really enjoyed that. The whole aspect of talking to people, and they were very shy, most of them. They didn't show themselves. So on their end, their camera was blocked out. Obviously, they're watching me because I'm going to be doing a performance for them. But they would tell me their wildest kinks and their secrets and their secret little kinks that they would, never tell anybody. And they would sometimes whisper while they were talking because they were afraid of being heard, and it was just, I found it to be psychologically very interesting because I was like, I feel like I'm helping people. Like I'm support for these people, reaching out with their sexual desires and kinks. And I can bring that to life for them by performing. So it was very rewarding, and it still is to me, it was rewarding. It's like a service that you're giving someone and they really appreciate it and they're very happy. Very rarely do I deal with anyone saying, well, that was a complete waste of my time. And that was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. I will never come here again. I'm going to report you to the porn police.
Let me ask you, for people who haven't had the experience of either like they don't really understand what camming is or what webcam is. Can you break that down for us? Can you tell us a little bit more about like what happens in a
Yeah,
session and how that works?
sure. So this was back in 2007 or so. So it was a lot of technology ago. Uh, so it was very probably dinosaur-y compared to today's webcamming services that are available. But basically, back then, it was, I'm sitting in front of a computer that has a little camera, or I could plug in my video camera to the computer. And then on their end, it's just like this Zoom call that we're doing right now. I can see you, you can see me in little squares. But usually the customer would have their video camera turned off,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, they were wanted their privacy for whatever reason. I obviously would have mine turned on. They would send me a little message saying I would like a 10-minute show, a 20-minute show, a 30-minute show. I would then send them the little price list. And then they would tell me what it is that they were looking for on that show. And it was all solo stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
just me. I wasn't performing with anybody else at the time. And it could be anything from foot worshiping or shoes, anything to do with the feet, which is a huge fetish, to lingerie fetishes of, I love satin lingerie. Can you wear satin lingerie and masturbate while you tell me how silky the satin lingerie feels against your skin? And they would have obviously masturbate on the other end. So it was basically people will tell you whatever it is that their fetish or kink is, what they want to see, and then I would agree to do that, and then they would make their payments, and then our session would begin, and it would be on a little timer, letting them know, 10 minutes or 15 or whatever the show was going to be. Um, and then at the end of that show, um, I would then click, you can see, there's other people waiting. So then you
Mm-hmm.
click on the next person and that's called webcamming, and you just can webcam all day. You can click, turn your button on when you're available, and
Mm-hmm.
then you turn the button off when you're not available. So, I would click on it about 11 in the morning and click off about 6 or 7 at night. And I would do that several days a week. And I was making really good money, starting to build up a clientele. I was having repeat people come back, so repeat customers. Um, and I was offering, being a previous salon owner,
Mm-hmm.
I was aware, of customer service and how to get repeat clients and et cetera. So it just all sort of fell into my lap, and it was just the next thing that I was doing business wise.
I love that you bring in the idea of customer service because I don't think that's something that we often think about in the adult world.
Yes.
And what would you do that you would consider to be customer service that might be different than another cam operator?
I think that I offer a very personal experience, and I meet people where they are, and I respect who they are. I have a lot of patience for quantity of people coming and going. And from working in the salon industry, I was booked solid every single day, every hour. I had a different person sitting across from me in my chair. And
Mhm.
so I'm dealing with that individual, and then she leaves, and then there's another person in my chair from 10 in the morning till 7 at night, nonstop, every week for months. For 10 years, I did that.
Mhm.
So now I'm dealing with a different customer with a different request, but it's still a service. Um, and you want them to be happy and you want them to come back. That's business 101.
Mhm.
So keeping it personal, keeping it real, being respectful, not shaming, and just trying to do the best that I could do for that individual's request.
Well, so I know that shame and sex can be there can be a lot of shame around sex,
Yes.
and specifically when you were talking a little bit about people would ask for fetishes or they would have something that they were really interested in that they might feel shame around. And I mean, have you always been understanding and sort of shameless, or was that something that came with um, came with time?
Um, well, I think that, I've always been understanding to people's situations, but sexually speaking, this came with time. Because I grew up in a very traditional New England household back in the 70s. It was a very difficult time for women. A lot of shame around sex. Unbelievable. We just started rewatching The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever watched it, but there's a whole conversation about men giving women oral sex and that it's considered weak, and pussy, like they're a pussy if they eat pussy. They're weak. It's something shameful. They should be embarrassed about it. They're considered, excuse this word, but I'm going to use it because they used it in The Sopranos. You're a fag if you eat
Mm-hmm.
pussy, which doesn't even make sense. But this is the mentality that I'm talking about that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And men were like that with us. We were very shamed about our bodies. Um, so along with that, I'm growing into an adult, into a sexual being, and I was carrying that baggage around with me. So I was never very open or very excited about sex because I was not having good sex. I was not having good relationships, healthy relationships. I was involved in very toxic, abusive relationships that I found myself in a little pattern of that.
Mm-hmm.
I finally realized, woke up, got out of that, got therapy, and changed my ways and have had a lot of growth since all that. But yeah, so being open sexually to all these kinks has definitely taken time because when these guys were saying, "Can you do this or that?" I would be like, in my own head, I'd be shocked, going, "Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that." But yes, of course I can do that. And I would do it, fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started learning more about the fetish world and kink and BDSM and all that good stuff.
So I'm curious, hearing you say that about, the negative piece around like eating pussy. Um, it seems to me that it's changed and now it's sort of gone to the other extreme where it's
Yes.
like, you know, uh, every man, or well, not every man, but like, often there's this like, oh, so we kiss, I eat your pussy, you suck my cock, then there's penetration, and then there's climax, and then we're done with sex.
Yes.
And how have you seen that change? Or have you?
Wow. Well, in the adult industry, that kind of seems to be the norm, and that seems to be the formula. And
Mhm.
that really is the scripts that I receive. A lot of my films, majority of them are written by the fans and the followers. They send in their ideas, and they're either a custom made video or they're just like, "Hey, I have some ideas. Would you like my ideas?" And I always take them and read. So that is the formula in the mainstream, I would say.
Mhm.
So I I think that my my films I try to pull away from those norms, and then I create more of a storyline so that
Mhm.
there's more stuff going on in the individual who's watching in their head. They can be more cerebrally stimulated than just visually stimulated by watching a hot woman remove her clothes and a hot guy have sex on camera, which starts with kissing, then there's oral, then there's penetration, then there's climax, and then it's over. So I try to I don't try, I do create films that have at least 20 minutes of build up,
Mhm.
clothing changes, different scene changes, different conversations happening between each character to build up who is that character, what are they doing, what are they feeling, what's the vibe here, what direction is this going, is this something that's taboo, is this something that's forbidden, is this cheating and sneaking, and whatever the vibe is going to be about the film, we try to really build that up with storyline. And then the last part of the film will be the sexual encounters, and we try to make them as erotic and more detailed as possible.
Can you talk a little bit about Red MILF Productions?
Sure. You mean like the content or?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm curious how it came about, and like what makes it different than some of the other production companies out there.
Yes. Well, it came about because I have red hair and I was deemed a MILF, and it's my production company. So we just named it Red MILF Productions.
Awesome. And for those who may not be familiar with the acronym MILF, do you want to tell us what that is?
Mother, I'd love to fuck. um, yeah, I didn't even know what that word was when I first was called a MILF. My partner at the time that I started the company with, he said it to me one day, just being goofy. He just said, "You are such a MILF," and I was like, "What is that? What is that? I don't know." And he told me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I never heard of that before." So that was just sort of a interesting how that all came about. But I would say that the difference between my production company and some other production companies, and there's a lot of them out there now, and I don't have the time in my day to possibly research and watch all of the production companies, but I know there's really it's getting better and better. There's a lot of really quality production companies out there that are much more you know geared towards women and their pleasure and relationships and stuff like that, that just it's healthier, a little healthier to watch. um but I feel like my what makes my production company a little bit different is, in the beginning, as I said, we were basically trying to stay under the radar and sort of underground.
Mm-hmm.
And we are producing films, and I was at number one for over a decade, standing at studio top selling studio on Clips for Sale for over a decade, and we're still trying to stay under the radar, being one of the number one top studios. Every platform I went to, I soared right up to number one and stayed there. And I think it's because the difference is I was shooting with amateur people, except for females. The women I was working with were in the industry and working with other production companies. But the men that I was working with answered ads like on Backpage or Craigslist. And they were literally, I put an ad out saying, if you're attracted to older women and you are open to shooting sexual content that will be sold on the internet, contact me. And that's how I hired all the men that I worked with until just about a year ago or 2 years ago. This is when I just started to work with actual professionals that are in the industry, that work with talent agencies and have experience in filming. So that's the difference. That I worked with amateurs. So these people were coming over. They were actually attracted to me and very nervous. And you could see it in the scenes, in the sex scenes, and all of the scenes. They're wide eyed and excited and scared. And it just adds a whole different element to filming than working with professionals who all show up and are like, all right, scene one is this and that, no problem. I can keep it hard and fuck her for 45 minutes if you need me to. Where these
Mm-hmm.
guys literally shaking in their boots. And I'm like, I kind of liked that. It was exciting and it was fun. And they didn't take any pills. There was no Viagra. There was nothing like that happening. So that's, and I like to call my work professional amateur.
I
Mhm.
love that.
Mhm.
And so I noticed as you were talking about that there's a real enjoyment for you. It sounds like, so it sounds like you really still enjoy your work. Would
Do. Yeah, I really do. I really enjoy the whole creative process to making film,
Mhm.
being a film producer. I'm fascinated by it. The whole process from hiring folks to setting up the shoots to deciding what we're going to shoot, and then the whole process of what will we wear, what will the camera angles be, what rooms will we be in, what will the lighting look like, what will the dialogue be. So yeah, I really enjoy the entire process.
Sounds like a very artistic venture for you.
It really is. Yeah, it's so much more. I know a lot of people just think if you say, I'm in porn, which is, I don't even like to just say it like that. I like to say I'm a film producer. I produce
Hmm.
films. And of course, the next question is, what kind of films? And then I say adult. And then I think that people put you in a little box thinking that, you just open a door, the plumber is here, you pull down your pants, you bend over, and that's your creative process. And it's just not.
And how much, going back to women's pleasure, I'm curious uh, how you frame that in your movies.
hmm Well, it's tricky because again, this is a form of this is entertainment,
Hmm.
absolutely entertainment. So we don't really have the time and the luxury to just lay back and literally let the guy or the girl or whoever you're, being intimate with, you can't just lay there and be real. This is entertainment. So, we're on a time schedule. We're paying people to be there. We've got a cameraman, an editor, a lighting person, all the actors that are there, all getting paid. So it's like first scene is this, second scene. So we're not like literally just laying back, moaning and groaning in pure ecstasy, pleasure, orgasmic. We really have to kind of do a lot of acting to get through those scenes. To for reasonable reasons, for cost of production and whatnot. Um, but working with these professionals that I have been working with, they're all wonderful folks who are very geared towards your pleasure, and they will ask me before scenes, "Is there anything you would like me to do? Is there anything you would like me not to do? Do you like to be touched a certain way, a certain place?" And so people are definitely more aware and more concerned about everyone's pleasure. So we are actually receiving and giving pleasure while we're filming. We just don't have the luxury of being able to maybe just take the time that we would normally take in our personal lives to really enjoy that sort of a sexual experience.
Well, and I think you point to something, which is that the adult films that most of us see are about entertainment and not about education so much.
Right.
And it seems that unfortunately many people um, use them as educational, or because we have
Yeah.
so much shame around talking about sex, and because our the what we are allowed to talk about in education wise about sex is so limited
Yep.
that we need to go somewhere.
Yes.
So, and what one of the things that I enjoy about your films is that there is an element in many of them about like introducing uh into sex, whether it's sort of the stepson or the cousin or there's a lot of family taboo going on.
Yes, yes, that's why the word taboo. Yeah, that was the biggest seller for me in the beginning.
Hmm.
First it was MILF,
Hmm.
and then one customer reached out and said, "Can you make a movie about a mother and a son?"
Hmm.
And they're going to have sex. And I read the script and I thought to myself, yeah, sure, why not? Because this isn't real. I
Hmm.
This is not real. This is, to me, entertainment, fantasy. It's a script, just like the movies. When you go to a movie and watch the movie, unless it's based on a true story or a true story, it's fantasy. So these people aren't really getting killed. They're not really dying. Sharon Stone didn't really get shot, you know? So I'm thinking in my head, so this is the same thing. This isn't really my son, and he is of age, and we are consenting adults. So let's make this. Why not? And I did it. And I guess I was the first one to do that. Nobody else
Hmm.
was doing it. Everybody else was doing stepmom. And it went viral. It went crazy. And it brought me right up to number one. and kept me there. And I thought, wow, look at this. This is really doing well. And then I started getting bombarded with customer requests. Can you do more stuff like that? Mom, son, mom, daughter, dad, daughter, family stuff. And then I realized, okay, this is Taboo Family Fantasies, which I have a whole series of Taboo Family Fantasies on my website that I made, and people love it. And it's something that, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but there's a lot to be said about these fantasies, and they're very real. And there's millions of people who have these fantasies. And what I've learned from them is they're not actually fantasizing about sexual relationship with their actual existing family members. It's just the mother figure, the
Mm.
matriarchal thing. It's like a mother figure, not my actual mother, not my actual father. I'm not fantasizing about actually having sex with my mother. So people have told me this, and they were just like, it's just hearing the word mom, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just it's the most taboo. And people like taboo. If you tell them, do not eat that cookie, that
That's
cookie
the
looks even
cookie.
better. Looks even more chocolatey.
So is that still your most popular request, or are you noticing a shift in anything?
No, it's my most popular request. Unfortunately, we are now bound by all kinds of bureaucracy, that we cannot use the word mom, mother, father, daughter, son. It can't even be in our language. I've been so much of my content. We were doing so well on Pornhub, and so much of it has been removed because it goes against community guidelines. I've been shut down on Instagram, I think, 4 times. One point, I had 264,000 followers. They
Mm-hmm.
shut me down, said I was against community guidelines. And I'm not using these words. I'm not saying mom, son, but I don't know why, but it's, just taken down. And so now everything that I'm doing moving forward, I'm being forced to use stepmom.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, the whole mom son thing is no longer allowed by the credit card processing companies. It's all bureaucracy. It all goes from our talent right into the credit card companies saying, no, we're not going to process any payments for any kind of content like that. So that's the shift that I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. So it's the shift is about the bureaucracy versus being about the desire of what people are looking for.
Yes, and I'm sure you're familiar, as I've done some other podcasts with sex workers and sexologists who
Mm-hmm.
said that they can't even spell out the word sex on most of the social media platforms. They have to spell it seggs, or they can't even discuss, and they're licensed therapists that are, sex therapists that can't even discuss their business or anything on some of these social media platforms. So it's putting us all in a box. It's a shame because our reach is being limited and we can't reach people. And I find that if you can prove yourself by verifying yourself and your content that, yes, everyone I shot with, here is their paperwork, here is their identification, here is a video of them saying, yes, I am of age, I was not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, I did not do anything against my will, I was not harmed during the filming of this. We did all of that. We follow all the guidelines, all the federal guidelines, and still we're very censored, extremely censored. And that's very frustrating, because we're just trying to produce entertainment that can fulfill people's sexual fantasies, um, without harming anyone in the process.
And I think, the service that I really see coming from the adult industry is uh, giving people a place
Yeah.
to feel expressed, giving people a place where it's like their thoughts, their feelings, their fantasies can be expressed without shame.
Yes.
Because I think we started to talk a little bit about this earlier, but like that shame piece is so damaging because it goes to a core place of like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough,
Yeah.
I'm wrong, I'm bad. And when people live with that kind of shame bottled up, they don't live very full lives, but B, they can be dangerous.
Absolutely. Yes. We're doing the world favors. We're doing the world a good thing, a justice, when we can provide these outlets for folks. As you said, because sometimes this can get their outlet, they can get it out instead of uh, repress repress it and then become unhealthy in lots of ways.
And do you find that people, even though it's not necessarily education, do you find that in some of the your fan letters that they learn things?
Well, I have. I still receive so many over the 20 years. I'm constantly receiving emails from people saying, thanking me for the content that I've produced because they never knew they even had this fetish, but now they realize it's one of the biggest fetishes they have and they love it. And it's changed their life and made them a happier, healthier individual. And they're happy that they have an outlet to go to. They watch my films. They're like, some of them say things like, I really only enjoy your porn because you do the whole taboo thing and you do it so well. It's I'm tired of the mainstream stepmom stuff. Doesn't do it for me. There's 22-year-old women claiming to be stepmothers, and I don't buy it. And your stuff is so realistic, and I just love, and they go into detail about what it is that they love. But yes, absolutely. When you provide, this sort of entertainment for folks, it's an outlet and it's a place that they can go and be themselves and know that they're not alone because they can see, look at all the people that are following, look at all the likes. So I'm not the only one watching this. Millions of other people are watching this. That means I'm not the only one that thinks this way. That means I'm not sick.
Mhm.
Because some people have expressed feeling that they thought that they were sick. They were
Mm.
sick individuals. And like you just said, that creates shame and that creates living less of a life. And that can create harm to oneself or maybe to others. And it can just really, it's a ripple effect. So it's wonderful when you can have a legitimate outlet that is some adult entertainment that has been vetted, that is not exploiting any people, that is following all the rules. And it's just too bad that our culture, our society at a whole, can't just, let loose a little bit, let go of the grip of control and power and, through whatever religious beliefs or whatever, just live and let live as long as people are not being harmed, and I just don't know when or if that's going to happen. It feels like we're getting more restricted and more censored than I've ever known it to be.
Mm. Well, I can't believe how fast how fast time has passed.
Yeah.
I am going to invite you to take a moment and just think like, if you want if there's one thing that you want people to walk away with from our conversation today, what that might be. And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a moment to let people know how they can support the Better Sex podcast.
Great.
So, Better Sex is going to save the world in my infinite wisdom. And here's the thing, sex is a complex issue and it can make or break a relationship. And unfortunately, as we've been talking, most of us don't grow up in an environment where talking about sex is welcome. And that's why I offer a better bedroom breakthrough session. And this is a personalized one-on-one experience where you get to discover what is holding you back. Because let's face it, a podcast may not be enough, no matter how good it is. And so I invite you to take a moment, check out the show notes, and make an appointment so that we can talk about what sex is for you and how to make it better. So I'm curious, Rachel. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me. What is it that you really want people to know and to
Mhm.
walk away from our
Yeah,
conversation with?
I would like people to know that aren't maybe people that are not too familiar with the adult industry and the filmmaking aspect, and producers such as myself. I'm a producer and a performer, so I'm experiencing everything from both sides. I would say. Have a little more understanding that we are uh, the majority of us are legitimate um, people that really do care, and we are not exploiting or trafficking, and we need that support. We need the community as a whole, and followers and fans and people that might be listening for the first time that are curious to go to my website and take a peek at some of the content that I produce, to understand that I am the woman next door, I am your neighbor, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a hard worker, I'm a film producer, and this is entertainment. We produce these things to create joy for people to be able to express themselves and learn more about themselves and just have some fun. And to realize that it's, the stigma that is attached to it is just a bunch of bullshit. So, yeah, it's just a stupid little stigma. Just flick it off, flick it away.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I really wanted to just underline what you said about like people who are on screen, for the most part, with legitimate, thoughtful production companies, are there are choosing to be there.
Absolutely.
And there is a whole process that happens before you even get accepted to be on screen.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think it's so unfortunate that like this is that when we think of like trafficking, that this is where our mind goes,
Absolutely.
because the actual thing is it's like that's not exactly the way that happens. So
No, we're not the bad guys. And if you're looking at us as we are the traffickers and we are the ones that are doing these things, you're looking at the wrong people. And the people that are doing it are not even being looked at.
mhm.
So, leave us out of that mix, because that's not where we're at. That's not what we do. And like you said, it's a whole process to even be shot and accepted, and testing and paperwork, and boundaries are discussed, and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, we're really legitimate, and we're filmmakers, and then that's it.
Mm. Thank you so much, Rachel Steele, the CEO of Red MILF Productions. Thank you so much. Where we can find you?
Yes. My website is the best place to go. It has all of my links for social media and everything that I'm doing, and my newsletter and all of that. And my website is rachel-steele.com. And that's Rachel-Steele, Steele.com. That would be the best place. Or you can find me on X at Red MILF Rachel.
Got it. And of course, everything will be in the show notes. And so please go ahead and follow her, check her out. Really good stuff. Allow yourself a little bit of to
Taboo pleasure.
a little taboo pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And please, if you want to bring more love and better sex to the world, subscribe, like, and if you think that you know someone who might be helped by this conversation, please help us spread the word. So again, Rachel, thank you so much. And to those listening, bye for now.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It was a pleasure.